Welcome to this edition of Community Roundtable. I'm your host. My name is Henry Huang, and it is our pleasure today to have our special guest, Jay Chen. Jay is the school board member for the Hacienda-La Puente School District. Thanks for coming to the show, Jay.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, Jay, you're in the news a lot lately because you're one of very few people that were honored to go into witness the historical inauguration of President Obama. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. It was a pretty amazing experience, and I was lucky to go because I helped volunteer. I volunteered on the campaign, brought out people to support Obama, and in the end, I was given a few tickets. So, as everyone knows, it was very cold.
Right.
And
those tickets was very difficult to obtain.
The tickets were hard to obtain, but to be honest, people who didn't have tickets, who were watching from the National Mall, further from the Capitol than we were, actually had a better view than I did, because the ticketed area was just pretty much overrun. People who didn't have tickets got into the ticketed area, and there were too many people. So people who didn't have tickets didn't get in either. So I was very lucky to be able to get in.
Well, I'm surprised to hear that, because from the news, it's something like they mobilized the most people ever in terms of security and everything like that. Yeah,
they could have done a better job, to be honest. I got up at 5 in the morning, and we got on the subway. We were on the subway for about an hour because certain metro stops were closed because there were too many people.
Right.
And when we finally arrived about 7 o'clock, we waited until 11, 4 hours in line, and the line was not moving.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So finally, we joined the big mob of people that were trying to get in.
Right.
We got in, and then when we got to the area where we were supposed to be, again, we were just jam-packed, shoulder to shoulder. And, you couldn't really see very well because there were people in front of you that were taller. Right. But it was still great to be there because we could see the Capitol, we could make out the specks of people on the Capitol, and we could hear everything that was happening. So I don't regret going at all.
Oh, I'm sure. It's a historical moment, for first black president that, become American president.
Right.
It must be an awesome experience for you.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
it was really great.
I know you also went with a couple of your friends as well.
Yes, I went with Karen Chang. She works for State Controller John Chung. And I met a lot of other friends there who are from Los Angeles. Some other Chinese Americans like Clark Lee and Curtis Chin, people who are pretty active in the Democratic Party. So they received tickets.
Right, and I'm sure the makeup, the demographic was pretty racial diverse and everything like that at this inauguration.
It was, but there were definitely a lot of African Americans everywhere. And I don't know if that was because we were in D.C., where there is a historically large population, or if I think a lot of African Americans came just as Asian Americans would come if it was an Asian American president they wanted to celebrate. Sure. So it was very diverse, definitely.
And was everything peaceful? I mean, were everybody rally and stuff like that?
That was the interesting thing. Even though we were in line for 4 hours and people were tired, some people fainted because they were standing for too long.
Right.
There was no animosity. Even when people were pushing to try to get in, no one was upset. And everyone was there. It seemed like nothing could kill the mood because everyone was so happy to see Obama become president. So it was very, very peaceful despite the huge crowds.
Well, that's incredible because we all know, we live in L.A. I know when I have to go to work and drive in L.A. traffic, I mean, people are honking each other, try to, don't have the patience to wait in line. So that's really, so that speaks a lot for Obama, right?
It definitely does.
That because of the influence that you said you were there 5 and got into D.C. at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
The inauguration doesn't start until
11.
11. So you were in the cold for almost 4 hours.
I was in the cold for 4 hours, in a subway for an hour, walking in the cold for another hour.
And people were still very patient.
Everyone was patient. There was nothing you could do to ruffle anyone's feathers.
Right.
Which was great. And that's a mark of Obama's ability to bring people together and what his inauguration symbolizes for so many people.
Right.
We were all here for something much bigger than ourselves.
Right. And that's why he won big this time around.
Yeah.
So it's good, and being a minority ourselves in this country, it's a really great thing that happened.
I agree.
Now that says that anybody can be president.
Right. And one of the highlights of the inauguration was when Obama was seated, right behind him was an Asian an Asian man. I don't know if people noticed.
Right.
But that was Conrad Ng, who is Obama's brother-in-law. So
really?
For the first time, within the first family, at least within the immediate extended family, we have an Asian. And he's an Asian Canadian. So, that's history right there. And the president's sister is half Asian. So, it's a very diverse first family. And I think that in itself is a great change. When people all over the world see an Asian person among that first family, it changes their perception of what an American means.
Right. Well, that's incredible. I didn't even know that fact. I just know that there were 3 other Asian that's working very inside the administration.
Right.
I think there were a gentleman by the name of Chris Liu.
Right, Chris Liu. He was, I think he's in charge of the transition, and now he is a cabinet secretary.
Right.
So he's the person that liaisons between the president and the other secretaries. And he was Obama's, I believe, chief of staff in his Senate office.
Right.
So that was a really big deal. I got to meet him.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow, what is he like?
Oh, he's a very humble person, very nice. I told him, I congratulated him, and I thanked him for what he was doing, because it's great for young Asian Americans to see someone like him in that kind of position.
Right.
And he was a classmate of Obama's at Harvard Law School.
Right.
But just a very smart person, very humble, and he's doing this because he really wants to serve.
Right.
And I get that sense from everyone in the administration. They're chosen because of their talent and because of their willingness to do what's best for America, as opposed to any kind of prior ties or special interests they have.
Right, and I'm sure most people that want to work for... I remember in the papers there were over 30,000 applications.
300,000.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For only a couple of thousand of job openings. And that was something that you don't normally see.
No, you don't see that ever.
Because we know working in the government doesn't mean pay you the most money.
Right, it doesn't pay you much money.
But people are just so inspired by Obama. They just want to be part of the history, be part of the whole atmosphere in changing America.
Right. And I think for once they realized that government can work for the people. And Obama was a symbol of that. No one thought that he was going to win.
Right.
And he raised most of his money, not from lobbyists, but from everyday people. And he raised the most money in history. So he upended the campaign finance system.
Right.
And he showed that another way is possible. And now he's going to show the same thing as president, that another way is possible. And I think he's already shown that by all the executive orders he's signed.
That's right. You want to tell us about those executive orders?
Sure.
It's very special.
Well, one that I really liked was his rule on lobbying. Now, he's very, very strict on lobbyists. And as everyone knows, lobbyists are people who work for big companies, and they lobby politicians to get certain things changed to go their way. And his rule is that if you had lobbied before and you work in his administration, you can't work on anything related to what you had lobbied on.
Right.
And if you leave the administration, you cannot lobby the administration for as long as Obama is president.
Right.
And that's amazing because, unfortunately, I find in the political world, lobbying is almost a de facto landing pad for a lot of politicians. They spend their time as Congress members or senators, and once they leave, what they do is they go and lobby.
Right.
You would think that being a congressman or a senator is a big enough honor, but you see a lot of politicians from the other party leaving to become lobbyists now. So it's kind of like a revolving door, what they say.
Right.
You're in politics, and then you come back and you lobby your friends. So Obama's trying to put a stop to that, and hopefully this means only people who are very interested in serving the public, as opposed to serving their own pocketbook, will choose to go into government.
Right, and that you don't normally see that with previous presidents.
No, it's never happened. I don't think in any Democrat or Republican administration. That's a very big change.
And how are people receiving of this? All these people that used to work for the lobbying company and all that. How they?
I'm sure they're not happy that they won't be able to join or they won't be able to conduct business as usual. But there are enough talented people out there that I'm sure you can fill all the spots without having to rely heavily on people with lobbying experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's tell the audience about. I know you were a very strong supporter of Obama's during his campaign. How did Obama inspire you?
Oh, well, I saw a lot of parallels between myself